Hello and welcome to the Tavern Chat podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkar's Tavern blog. So today, I am opening up the Dungeon Master's Guide from first edition, and I am looking at the section of unusual swords. Now, what were unusual swords? They were swords that had an alignment. If a sword's unusual, to determine it, you roll percentile dice, and basically, 1 out of 4 swords has intelligence, abilities, and a way to communicate, whether it's semi-empathy at an intelligence of 12, empathy at an intelligence of 13, speech starting at 14, and you can add in telepathy with a sword with 17 intelligence. Now, think about this. Oh, and by the way, with semi-empathy, the possessor will receive some signal, a throb, tingle, etc., and feel urges when its ability functions. All right, and then that's semi-empathy, and then empathy apparently does nothing because it doesn't have any asterisk next to it. So this whole thing comes down to, by the way, my players hated fucking intelligent swords. Okay, back in my early days of gaming, when I played things as close to the book as possible, taking away weapon speed, but we still kept segments and interrupted spells and casting times and material components, and it was really a game. We joke nowadays that Pathfinder is really like Spreadsheet Finder or Math Finder. AD&D 1E, if you played it by the book, was meticulous record keeping, meticulous counting of segments and figuring all that stuff out. And in the end, a lot of the stuff fell to the side because it just slowed gameplay down. But with intelligent swords, and by the way, with intelligent swords, I don't recall any OSR games, maybe in Osric, but it's been a while since I've read the Osric rules, which deals with intelligent swords. I've seen them in adventures, but I haven't seen the rules for intelligent swords, which I think is kind of interesting. Now, just as an aside, 15% of intelligent swords are, guess what? Evil. Okay? Now, 25% of intelligent swords are lawful good. Figure that one out. Only 5% are chaotic good. 20% are neutral good. So half your swords are good in alignment. Now that kind of makes sense because you're trying to make sure that when these swords fall in the hands of players, they have a chance to use it. And swords that are chaotic, neutral, let's see. Chaotic, neutral, lawful neutral, or neutral evil can be used by any character whose alignment corresponds with the non-neutral portion of the weapon's alignment. Also neutral good. So a neutral good sword can be used by anybody that's lawful good. So basically, if you wanted to have the greatest chance of using a sword, you had to be a lawful good character, because then you could use a neutral good sword or a lawful good sword. And you had, my math is right, a 45% chance of having a sword that you could use, but that also meant that a 55% chance that you could not use the sword. Now, after you find the intelligence of the sword and find the alignment of the sword, you move on to the sword's primary abilities. And most swords only come from these primary abilities. They may have a couple, but if you have a sword with a 17 intelligence, but there's a 1 in 100% chance it has one extraordinary ability. And if you roll a 99 or 100 on the sword's primary abilities, it has an extraordinary ability. But, sword's primary abilities are detect things. They replicate character abilities like detecting sloping passages and traps, evil, good, magic, secret doors, gems, objects. Well, these things you have to like concentrate on for the sword to do it, which is fine. The extraordinary powers include things like flying, heal. That's a powerful spell. Like, that's huge. Strength spell, X-ray vision. I like the chance to character may choose one power from this table, and then there's a 1 in 100% chance that it could have a special purpose. In which case, its special purpose is to kill fighters, thieves, uh, whatever. So, and if it has special purpose, then it can cause blindness, confusion, disintegration, paralysis, insanity, fear, saving throw adjustment. I mean, but here's the and your sword gets to roll for a number of languages it can speak. That has nothing to do with intelligence. Now you're thinking, wow, I want a sword. Wouldn't it be great to have a sword with 17 intelligence and be +3 and be kill, have special purpose to kill or overthrow chaos or law, and I could be like fucking Elric. Well, you could be like Elric, but the problem is the sword becomes Stormbringer. The sword can wind up taking over you. And that's where intelligent swords, my players fucking hated it, because once you figured out the sword's intelligence and then you figured out their ego, because swords have ego, and it was determined by the pluses and the primary abilities and special purposes and languages spoken and whether it had a telepathic ability. And the flame tongue was dangerous if it was intelligent, because you think, it's mostly +1, but it's also +4 at the end. Very limited specific. So it counts as a +5 sword for ego purposes. So, what does all that mean to your players? Well, you can have a personality conflict between you and the sword. And the sword, you end up the intelligence and the ego, and that gives you the sword's power, so to speak. And then you add up your intelligence and charisma. Now remember, charisma was usually a dump stat, right? You usually made that your dump stat, unless maybe you were playing a druid or a paladin. It was a dump stat. And if you're playing a fighter, right, most sword-wielding characters are fighters, intelligence is probably a dump stat too. So you're not starting out too well over there, plus your level of experience. But here's the issue with the level of experience. You take your hit points, okay, and you divide it by your level of experience, and say you're averaging 6 hit points per level, and you're level 5, you got 30 hit points. As you lose hit points, you lose personality strength. So you might start out okay and not have to worry about the sword taking you over, but in the end, it can take you over. And what happens when the sword takes you over? Basically, whenever personality conflict occurs, the sword will resist the character's desires and demand concessions, such as removal of associates, henchmen, hirelings, or creatures of alignment or personality distasteful to the sword, divesting the character of his or herself of all other magic items. Obedience for the character is that the sword can lead the expedition for its own purpose. It goes on. The character relinquishes the sword in favor of a more suitable person due to alignment differences and or conduct. So now the sword can say that you're not sticking to the alignment that is required. Now, swords become effectively an NPC if they're intelligent. And I like this. Swords of this nature will never be totally controlled or silenced by the characters who possess them, even though they may be heavily outweighed by personality force. So they may be powerless to force their demands, but they will be in their plugging. Even a humble +1 sword of unusual nature can be a vocal martyr, denigrating its own abilities and asking that the character only give it the chance to shatter itself against some hated enemy. You know, there was that saying from the Bible: "The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away." Well, here, Gygax giveth and Gygax taketh away. You can have these items that you think are powerful or an excellent addition to uh, your character, and instead, what it really is a detriment. And I never really enjoyed player fucks like that. I was, cursed items were always rare and far between, and an intelligence sword could be a cursed item to a large extent. Now, I knew DMs that just hand waved the whole intelligence sword part. And it's intelligent, and unless you're doing something really like bizarrely stupid, the sword just shuts up, or it gets forgotten that it's intelligent until the player uses powers. But think about it. As a player, if somebody was running these intelligent swords by the book, would you really want one? Is it really worth the frustration? No, probably not. Which is another reason why when I look in the DMG, and this is like one of those hidden nuggets that you don't usually read. I think that it could be done differently these days. I think intelligent swords are certainly something that could be added to a campaign and would be interesting, but they have to have a reason to exist. And I think, remember, 1 out of 4 swords was intelligent, according to the DMG, which means your party's going to start accumulating this shit. You know, really, when you think about it, do you need something that's such a negative aspect to adventuring? It was tough enough back then in the early days anyway. It's tough enough in OSR gaming. Character death is not uncommon. To add an element that makes the character even less useful, I don't know. I don't know if I could handle that. At least not the way it was written. And believe me, I ran it the way it was written back in my teenage days. And my players just started leaving intelligence swords behind. You can't sell an intelligence sword. It fucking has, only, you can't just, sell it to a mate. You gotta, it won't allow it. Well, it'll be a pain in the ass. So, these things, maybe you could pass it on, but no. Not quite a rant, but it never felt right to me. In any case, I would love to see a current OSR write up on intelligent swords that veers away a bit from the Gygaxian history of them. We'll see. I don't think I have time at the moment, but you never know. Inspiration may strike like a mallet to the head. All right, folks. Thank you for listening. If you're on iTunes, please give us a review. Give us some good stars, yo. God bless. Be safe. Be healthy. Roll your dice. Roll them well. And I will talk with you all tomorrow.